Welcome to the Hanley Effect, a podcast by the Hanley Foundation designed to educate, change minds, and save lives. Our goal is to inspire you, showcase our innovations, and change the conversation about addiction and mental health. Join us as we unravel stories of resilience, recovery, and hope.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Hanley Effect. I'm John Dyben, and I am sitting here with our guest today. I am wildly excited to introduce to you Adam Jablin. Adam, how are you?
John, I'm great. Dr. Dyben.
So this is not even the first time that we've done this together. We did this. We did a podcast together a few years ago.
Yeah.
But Adam, for those who don't know, Adam is an author. He is a speaker. He is a podcaster himself. He is a coach, and he coaches people to really be the best that they are and the best that they can be. But I'll let him talk about all of that. Adam, I want to say welcome again. It's great to have you here today. And why don't we start? Why don't you take just a few minutes and tell people kind of who you are, what you do, whatever part of your story you want to tell us.
Okay. Well, I'll start with who I am and what I do. And I would like to give a little background on how I became that person that you were highly, highly influential in helping create. So as of right now, all of those titles fit, although really what that is a man of service. You know, my calling is to help people. And if it's recovery, alcoholism, addictions, obsessions of the mind, the addictive mind, you know, the all-in mentality, the out of balance person, those are the people I love. And within the coaching, you know, it couldn't just be about recovery. I had to work on myself. So brought in obviously personal development, spiritual principles, the road less traveled, maybe they're on an entrepreneurial journey, and also from my background, my bodybuilding and fitness expertise, and really try to give the person the whole holistic approach, the entire holistic approach to healing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's funny. We were actually, before we started, we were just talking, and I've been, I'm really interested in nutrition and nutritional psychology, but also, you know, with different things. I've been really interested in how I can change my own diet and be healthier. And we were just having a mini consultation, and you were helping me just even talking about some things that I can changes that I can make to be healthier. But I love your approach, because your approach is, I don't want you to be miserable. Your approach is, I want you to fall in love with this. So let's, you know, what you were just saying to me, right, is let's find some things that you can change in your diet that you're going to love, that'll be good for you, but that you'll love as well. Is that the same type of approach you take in everything?
In everything. I
love that.
And that's what you taught me 18 years ago. You know, I came to the Hanley Center July 14th, 2006.
Wow.
And I met you on my first day.
Yep.
And it was a seminar you were giving. And it was about healthy spirituality versus unhealthy spirituality. Yeah. And I'll never forget you explaining that spirituality is like muscles. They're like muscles. Yeah. And you can have unhealthy muscles that are atrophied and not working, and you know haven't used, or you could have healthy muscles that are full of nutrients and exercise and blood. And I literally thought this. I thought this was I'm like, he's speaking my language,
right?
And you explained to me you could see healthy spirituality and you could see unhealthy spirituality. You know, unhealthy spirituality, the person usually has their shoulders down, lack of eye contact, can't find their words very well. You have a weird vibe around them. Maybe they feel like they're lying or they're hiding something. And then you explain healthy spirituality. You could see their shoulders are back, their sternum is up, there's a sparkle in the eyes. They could seem to find their words. There's almost a feeling of celebration and connection. And I knew which one I was at that time. I was unhealthy spirituality. And I walked up to you that day and said, I need a meeting with you. And you were like, perfect. And the journey began. And you really started my healing.
It's funny because we've talked about this over the years. I actually remember that day really, really well. And even people who are listening can't see, and even people who are, watching us, you're wearing a jacket so they can't see. You're like this jacked dude, and you've always been this really jacked dude. And, it's interesting thinking about your own journey, because even then, when you're saying my spirituality wasn't healthy, like you looked, if anybody saw you on the street, if anybody met you, they wouldn't say they'd say this guy's as healthy as can be. And yet internally, that wasn't your real experience at that moment.
My body, what I tried to do was have my body, my looks, my charisma, and any sort of juice or game that God gave me, because I didn't know they were blessings at that time. I didn't use those words at that time. That was my brilliant disguise. If you saw the perfect package, or at least what appeared to be somewhat of a perfect package, then you couldn't tell me I was drinking too much or I was popping too many pills. And if you did, I was so egotistical, and not meaning to be egotistical, but I was so wounded, I was so hurt, that if you actually had the courage, if you had the balls to say, dude, you're hitting the bottle pretty hard, I'd be like, oh yeah? Well, when was the last time you saw a treadmill? Because I thought there was like an agreement here. I thought like you don't say my stuff, I won't say your stuff. Exactly. Yeah. And you're but I didn't realize these people were trying to save my life. Do you know what I mean? Like I always thought there was some sort of an agreement, and not knowing that what I was doing was killing myself. So it's a big part of what I teach too. You could have it all on the outside and be dying on the insides.
Wow. So you taught, and it's funny, we only have half an hour, and we both said, between you and I talking for only half an hour is not much. But I want to say that I think you did a brilliant job in your first book, which is Confessions of a Lotsaholic. I encourage anybody who wants to know more about your story. You did it really is cool, because you had integrity to your story and to what you did. You had integrity to everybody, anything or any interaction you mentioned. You kept people, you kept confidentialities, but you also didn't make it, there's this history with people writing books about their recovery stories, and a lot of times they'll make it, they'll add all sorts of drama, and yours is just really your honest story. It's beautiful. So I'd encourage anybody who wants to know more about your story to check that book out. And you and somebody else are working on coming out with another book right now.
Right now.
What's going on?
So also let me give you the backdrop on that, right? So right out of Hanley, you guys told me, you laid out the blueprint of how to have long-lasting, healthy, beautiful recovery. And some things people are going to hear this lingo, but you have to understand, when somebody's really, really new to this world, I didn't understand this stuff. And it was basically, look, Adam, now you're going to keep coming back once a week, but now we need you to go out. We need you to find a home group in a 12-step recovery. We need you to find a sponsor, and we need you to work these steps of recovery. And it was, I didn't hear these things as suggestions. I heard these as like, these are musts. Yeah. That's how I heard it. And day one out of treatment, I go to a meeting called Men on Track, and I meet my sponsor and mentor, who I had met at 12 years old, right when I had moved down from New Jersey. And his name is Dion DiMucci, and he's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame legend. Yeah. And when he came to my school, it was a really, really big deal back then, because at that time, movies like Stand By Me and La Bamba were out, and there was a whole revival of the 50s and 60s music. So you would go on your radio station, you would hear all the old hits with the current hits because of these movies. And when he came to our class and sang that day, it was a big, but I knew who he was. I was a kid from Jersey. He's a guy from the Bronx. Right. I grew up with these records and CDs from my parents, and these other kids from Florida had no idea how special this was. And I couldn't stop asking him questions. And I go up to him in this 12-step meeting, and I don't know what the connection was, but I felt really drawn to him, and I wanted to thank him for that day, because it was a memory that I was going to remember forever. Wow. And I had all the anxiety and the nervousness, and this is in the book, thinking he's going to think I'm asking him for an autograph. This is inappropriate, blah, blah. And I told him, and I finally have the courage to ask him and tell him what that day meant to me. He goes, "You're that kid?" He goes, "You're that kid from Jersey?" Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, I remember, because you are a precocious kid. He's like, "You were the only kid that sounded like me." He's like, "Take a seat." He goes, "Take a seat." And I sat next to him in that meeting and was under his wing the entire time. Recovery, spirituality, faith, how to be a man. And what this book documents is his life and him passing down all of this knowledge to me over the last 18 years.
Wow.
So it's called Dion the Rock and Roll Philosopher. It's in honor of him, written by us. Conversations on faith, recovery, life, and music. And it's him passing down all these stories.
And this is a man who's, like you said, a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, and who's very open about the fact that he has himself decades in recovery.
56 years clean and sober, and very proud of it.
Yeah, and very open, and it's a beautiful thing. It's funny that, I've obviously heard that story before.
Yeah,
it still knocks me on my feet every time I hear it. That moment of, you were that kid. That just still knocks me.
Yeah. So
thinking about your own journey, and again, people can, read your book and they can get your journey up to where you kind of begin your journey into recovery. But you also professionally were, you're a former bodybuilder. Or I guess you're still a current bodybuilder.
Well, I'm a fit guy. I'm a fit guy.
Yeah. If you're, guys like me, if you're, but you're also, back when you talk about the 18 years ago, you were a guy running a business, and your whole life was being a businessman, and it has completely taken this different phase to coaching and writing and being that helper and that healer. How has that journey kind of happened for you? How, in 18 years, do you make that level of transition as a successful adult? Because that's the thing that always gets me, is when somebody's a successful adult and they've got their thing, right? And then something happens and you transition to a whole other thing that you're finding a lot of success in. What's that transition been like? What drives that?
Well, you taught me a line in my first 28 days, which was, once you think you know all the answers, this is what you said to me, Adam, once you think you have all the answers, God changes all the questions. And that's what happened to me. That's what happened to me. The gift I was giving at Hanley, through God, through you, through the center, through just all the love that I received, it lit something inside of me that I didn't know I had. And it poured into every area of my life. And it became very attractive to people. I didn't know what it was. Other people didn't know what it was, but I didn't know it was special. It gave me my own self-esteem, my own way of being me, Adam Jablin, and not Bob Jablin, and not Morton Jablin, and not Dion, and just being myself. And it had me run the company the way I would run the company, with a different leadership protocol, kind of more of the Knights of the Round Table, and everybody feeling valued and everybody feeling loved. I make the decision at the end of the day, but that doesn't mean that we all didn't participate. Where before it was a little bit more of a cowboy's mentality. My way or the highway,
right?
In 2020, we decided it was time to sell the business, and I was in flux, and I didn't know what. I knew I had this gift, I knew I had this calling, but I didn't really know what to do. I couldn't. I felt pulled to it and called to it, but there's a lot of anxiety still within me. When these things happen. Because it's everything shifted in my life in this 1 year. Everything, marriage, everything, and it's emotional for me to talk about. That's why the came out. Anytime you hear it means I'm emotional. And I called Dion, and I'm like, "What do you think my next steps are?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're finally going to be Adam Jablin." He's like, you're going to influence people's thoughts to a higher reality. He's like, this is your time. And I went on the road less traveled. I started a coaching company called the Hero Project. I, at that time, didn't want anything under my name because I didn't really think I had the credibility. I didn't really think I had the training, but I knew I had the gift and I knew I had the skills. So I started something called the Hero Project, which is where I'm taking people through their hero's journey. You know, the 3 basic steps. There's a separation from the old story, separation from a drink, separation from a drug, separation from Tatooine to go be Luke Skywalker, separation from Krypton to Earth to be, you know, to become Clark Kent and Superman. There's always a separation in the hero's journey. Then there's an initiation process where you're learning new gifts, new skills, new ideas, new thoughts. My initiation process was the Hanley Center, where I met you meet these old wise mentors that are going to give you new ways of seeing the world and being a new man. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi teaching Luke Skywalker. This is Morpheus training Neo. This is Jor-El teaching Kal-El that he's not from that planet. All these stories have the wise mentor that pass on this knowledge. And then there's the return home. And I knew I had this basic protocol to take people through. And I launched it, and it got some momentum and it got some success. And, you know, but being an entrepreneur compared to being somebody that was ran in a family business, it comes with a whole different world of anxieties, worries, pressures, things that I had not experienced before. So that's why in my new program, I actually call it the Jablin method, which is everything under one umbrella. I actually call this part the road less traveled, because it takes a whole other level of recovery and courage to do something that you've never done before, and to put your ass on the line.
Yeah. There's there's a YouTube video. You ever seen this kid president? Oh,
no.
I'm going to email it to you.
You got to.
And it's this little kid, and he dresses up like the president. It's been around for a long time, and there are these inspirational, motivational things, and at some point, you know, he's talking about, you know, Robert Frost's poem, and he said, two roads diverged in the yellow. I took the road less traveled. And it hurt, man. The road less traveled is rocky and it's overcropped and it's, you know, and it sounds nice in a poem, but ultimately, you know, there's pain associated with it. So I got to imagine that taking that road less traveled also had some pain points.
John, a lot of pain. Every new adventure I've taken brings up another level of awareness of insecurities, fears, wounds that I didn't know were there or just were not healed yet, and they come to the surface. And that's where the first book we were talking about, Docekal, that's where I'm really proud of it, because if I could document what people would really people see, especially with social media now and with marketing, and people see this version of me, right? They see this, but what I want to do is let them hear what's going on in the head.
Right.
What's going on. That's what I did in Docekal.
Oh, you did. You really did that well.
I wanted them to know, I'm learning these new things, and the guilt and the shame.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking, well, I let this person down. I let that person down. How am I going to be here for 28 days? I have a daughter. I have just constant worrying, obsessing, never being able to be present in the moment. Right. Never.
Right. I've actually used your book with patients before, and the first time I remember very distinctly, the first time I ever did, it was a guy who essentially, once he got down to to really actually say some of the things that he was thinking, when he said them out loud, he said, "I know I sound crazy. I'm crazy to have these thoughts," and I actually. You document like some of your own, you know, illogical, like and that's what, you know, paralogic thinking. As a clinician, we talk about paralogic thinking in addiction, right? It's this, your brain, when a lot of times when you put it outside, and if you write down, this is actually what I'm thinking, you might go, oh, that doesn't sound right. But in your head at the time, it does. And you did a really beautiful job, man.
Thank you.
Of putting those thoughts out there in a way. This was actually a really young guy too, the first time I ever did that. Anyway,
And by the way, one of the things I really hope you felt this. I hope the Hanley Center felt this.
Before you say something, we are. So I haven't even mentioned the fact that Dr. Docekal was not here, but of course everybody's been looking and they've been going, "Where is Dr. D?
Where's
Here
Dr.
she
D?
is.
Where's Dr. D?
I'm so sorry.
She's just I don't
Life.
know, running a foundation.
Yeah, life.
Phew.
Welcome to the show.
One of my favorite people on
I
the
love you.
planet.
I
I'm
love
so
you.
glad
And
to see you.
this is great because it bridges what I was just trying to say, which is one of the neat things that I wanted to highlight in that book, and is highlighted in the Dion book, by the way. Just I know I haven't gotten to show it to you guys because I'm waiting for it to be in your hands. Is I wanted the Hanley Center to be the star of the book and not Adam to be the star. I wanted people to go, this is how you get that. This is just one guy going through the journey. You know what I mean? But look at what he received there. Look what he was. Look at this. Look at the lectures. Look at the spiritual. Look at the groups. Look at the people he was meeting. Yeah. Look where they took him outside. Look at them feeding the ducks and the turtles. Look at get to play basketball and volleyball. Look at the gym time. Look how they had different menus for people. I wanted, so that was really my motive, to make Hanley the star, and for me to be somebody going through the Hanley journey.
I love that. It's something that's bigger than all of us.
Yeah.
Right. So there isn't, and it is. It is the journey. Ultimately, is what it's about. But we get to be at a pretty cool place.
We do.
Where over the years, over the decades, people have figured out how to create an environment that cultivates that journey, that supports that journey. And I guess it could be a Hanley commercial, but I'm with you. There's something magical and bigger than any of us.
It's in the earth there.
Yeah.
It's in the earth.
Yeah.
It's a magical place. It's very difficult to describe unless you've been on the campus.
Yeah.
And you're really taking your time, and not just walk through the campus. Like, you really sit there, and you feel something shifts. It's protected.
Yeah.
This morning, I was sitting on the campus on a bench, and I was just watching this vining plant with this beautiful orange flower. It's just vining up one of the light poles, and it's just growing, just like so many people come to Hanley to grow, just like you came in.
You know something I never
different.
shared with either of you? I don't think I've ever shared it with anybody. I have that special pass now. So I get to come in, and there have been some significant moments that has happened in my life the last, say, 6 months, and I've gone without you guys, because it's just for myself, just selfishly, and I've gone out to the lake by myself, and I've just cried my eyes out, and it's a very comfortable place for me to cry, because that's where my initial tears came out. Yeah.
So good.
That's where my initial, I hadn't cried in years until Hanley. Years. Maybe since I was 5. So I feel safe there. I can't do it in my place for some reason. I'm not that healthy yet. But when I get there, it all comes up, and I allow myself to mourn.
Wow.
That happens to me when I go to church. I get into the pew, and I sit down, and I smell the air, and then I cry.
Yeah.
It all comes out every time. I can't help it. My girls now, when they go, they're, mom's crying again.
Here we go.
Or mom needs to cry. Let's get her to church.
Let's get her to church.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about safe spaces and about sacred spaces. And today there's so much going on in the world today. And we live in a very, very divided world, right? And there's so much, but sacred spaces are something that they've been a constant since history of man. And I so appreciate what you just said, right? You said, I'm not there yet. I'm not able to cry in my apartment yet. I'm not there yet. So even Adam Jablin, the author and the coach and the podcaster and the radio guy, and is saying, I'm still in that journey. I'm still on the journey.
And I need you guys to keep me accountable, because if you ever hear me say that I'm done with the journey, you got to check me back in for 20 days.
A lot more than 20
45 minimum.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I apologize.
That's
Old school. By the way, let me just say this out loud, because this is true, and you know it's true. I wish that was an option then.
45? Yes.
I didn't want to leave.
Yes.
I didn't want to leave.
Yes.
It was what it was.
It
was 2006.
Service. There was no research behind that. It was just, it's a month.
Yeah.
That's really, that's where it came from. And, thanks to the work of Dr. D over here and really looking at what works. It's different for every patient population, and soon we're going to know that sweet spot, the number of days that is optimal for each person. But we know it's 45 or above. It is not below 45.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Look, I say that because I got blessed.
Mm-hmm.
I got blessed. There's no doubt about it. But I wanted. It's in the book. When they're coining me out, I did not want to leave.
Yeah.
I did not want to leave.
You described it as spiritual camp.
It was.
And I love that.
I like
spiritual
that too.
camp. It's and it's a wild opportunity. How often do we get that opportunity for everything to kind of pause and just, if I got the opportunity, we always talk about fitness, and I've always wanted to be in good shape. If you gave me a month or 2 months to go somewhere and focus nothing but getting my body in shape, I would be thrilled, right? And this is that opportunity to do that with your mind. It's funny. I want to. It strikes me that you and I know this very, very well, but I would be remiss, as we're coming towards the end of our time, to not tell the story. Your nickname has always been
Superman. Yeah.
Anybody who knows you or met you, you're, like I said, you're a jacked guy and such, but your personality is enormous. I tell people before they meet you.
Kind. Remember how kind Superman was? So kind. Like Superman.
Thank you.
And positive.
Yes.
Positive energy and super kind. And I tell people before they meet you, I've never told you this. I tell people, I say, listen, when you meet Adam, you're not going to believe he's real. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be waiting for, when is the real guy going to come out?
Yes.
And I'm telling you right now,
he's real.
That's the real guy. That's just who he is. He's everything's intense, really positive. When he says, I love you, he means it. Even if he doesn't know you, I promise you, he'll give you the shirt off his back. Mm-hmm. And all of those great things. But also, that Superman for a long time was a real burden, because it was that mask, and it was, I have to. And you actually came back. You drove up from Boca to West Palm every Friday for a year, just to continue spiritual care. And I have in my office, now we do not accept gifts. You don't accept gifts from patients, but there are certain times when it is, there is a rationale to. And in my office, to this day, nearly 2 decades later, is something that you gave me. And at some point you said, and it had been about a year, and you brought in and you had this Superman figure, and you said, I'm ready to give up my Superman. And,
so good.
That Superman, by the way, is in my office to this day with his hands up. It's Superman surrendered. But that, if there's anything that I, and I think all of us struggle with, being real, being, letting our mask down. I do. And I will tell you that Superman, when I know I need to ask for help, but I'm unwilling or I'm embarrassed, that Superman helps me remember that I don't need to stay behind that mask. And so I want you to know that I'm grateful for that. And I hope everybody gets to come in my office and see that and know what it means now.
That means a lot. Do I have a couple of minutes?
So that's exactly right. We're running to the end of our
All right.
time, I turn it over to you.
First, I want to say I love you both very much, and thank you. You helped save my life. You've been there for me since the day I met you. But I wanted you to hear this, and I sent you photos of it. I think a video. I got to be with Dr. D in California on a podcast that she was. I had done mine earlier, where I was talking about my journey in Hanley, and I got to see Dr. D speak. But I've heard her speak and give presentations, but speak openly and be herself, and talk about the work that Hanley was doing. And they allowed me to stay. They allowed me.
That was super fun.
They allowed, and I had not seen anything like that in my life. I had not seen a podcast interview like anything like what Dr. D delivered in my life. She mentioned you. She talked about her own personal, let's say, recovery, what she's had to recover from, and why her pull and her heart is there. Yeah. She went through the Hanley Foundation, the Hanley Center, the mission, the Pregnant Women's Unit, the vision, but always bringing it back to the individual that's suffering.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't tell you enough. It was remarkable.
Thank you.
It was remarkable. I was very emotional to it. And she talked about happiness versus peace. Which I loved.
I love that one.
That's my favorite.
I love that. I think about that. I think about that on days that are challenging. I love my job. There are lots of days that it's challenging, but every one of those days I am at peace. It might be a hard day. I may not be particularly happy, but I'm peaceful and I'm joyful.
And that is the bottom line that's the journey that we're on. I love that.
Yeah, so good.
Well, we are out of time. Thank you, Dr. D.
I made it.
I'd just like to say, right, you're just running an entire foundation that's
golly.
all over the state.
Was really busy. So
Superwoman.
That's
Supergirl. Is that what's today's Supergirl, right?
I give up.
Yeah.
I surrender.
There we go.
I surrender.
The cape's still going to be on.
Adam, it has been great having you again. And this isn't, again, we don't, there's no, we don't get like 10 cents on every book, but I can't encourage people enough to get your book, Confessions of a Lotsaholic. I cannot wait to read this new one that you and Deanna have written together.
So good.
Brother, I love you. Thank
and by
you
the way,
so much.
I can't wait. I have the numbers. I have the pages number where you get to see the Hanley Center make its appearances within this. If it wasn't for the Hanley Center, there's no Dion and I. So it's, it's really cool. You guys are going to be really proud.
I am already
really proud.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love you, Adam.
Thanks.
I love you both.
And thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time on The Hanley Effect.
Thank you for joining us for The Hanley Effect. To learn more about our programs, visit hanleyfoundation.org or call 844-502-4673.